Hi guys, welcome back. This week's video will be much shorter. We're going to go over two new things. One is a bit of a review with one new idea and then some new vocab. So we are going to continue the idea of functions and what is the magic function box and what does a function do and how does it help us make predictions in the real world. So this is my notebook. Welcome. I'm super excited to have it. You should have your notebook. You'll notice there's no scrap work in it, only notes. So I go to my first page and let's start writing down. So function notation. We've been talking about functions. Now we want to learn how to talk about them like mathematicians do. So first we said this already, f of x is the same as y. If you don't have that in your notes, write it, highlight it, make it big. That's super important. Now let's talk about what the heck f of x is. You've been seeing it a lot, but let's really discuss it. So f of x means a function of x. So that's what the f is. It means function. So it's a function of x, meaning that it's doing something to x the input. Okay, we know that. The magic function box does something to the input, which is x. So it's a function of x. All right, I get it. The way you say it is f of x. So please, everybody, write this down right here. F of x means a function of x, and you read it as f of x. So write that in your notes. Now, if we were given a function, for example, f of x equals 5x minus 7, you could input a bunch of numbers for x and find out what it would equal to, which would be y or f of x. Let's look at an example. F of 3 equals 8. That's how we would say that. So we would read it as f of 3 equals 8. Write that down in quotes. So you write reads as f of 3 equals 8. That means when you plug 3 in for x, the output or y equals 8. So that means when the 3 goes in for x, that's important because I see the 3 right inside there. Then the y, I'm going to use a different color. The output or y equals 8, and that's this number right here. All right, so if you have highlighters, you can highlight your notes the same way I am. So let's take a look at where this is coming from. We had our function, f of x equals 5x minus 7. So I'm going to take that, and we have f of 3. So the 3 in here, I'll zoom in a little bit, is my x. The number in the parentheses tells me what my x or input is going to be. So I input that wherever I see the x. So you practiced this last week, so this should be good for you. And now we just simplify this, and that would give us 15 minus 7, which is equal to 8. That's why f of 3 is equal to 8. Now, guys, we are going to label some important stuff on here, okay? So write this nice and big. The first thing we're going to write, put an arrow to what's inside here in the parentheses. X equals 3. So the number in the parentheses equals x, okay? Then the 8 is equal to f of 3. What the heck does that mean? Well, remember we said that f of x is the same as y, so that means that y equals 8, okay? So the number in parentheses is the x. The number that it's equal to is the y. So that's a really important idea. Let's highlight that in 2 different colors. We'll do this part in pink. Okay, so this part is, actually no, I'm going to do it in green, just like I did it a second ago. Keep it consistent. And then the 3 is the x, okay? That's super, super, super important. So this, you're going to be practicing. Pause it, make sure you have notes on this. Pause it, make sure you have notes on this. This we're going to be practicing in Delta Math in a slightly different way. So let's take a look. So what this is going to look like is it might say, find the value of f of negative 4. That's how you say that, f of negative 4. So remember, if it's in parentheses, that's the x value. So x equals negative 4. So I'm going to go to the x-axis, and I go to negative 4 on the x-axis. Will it let me highlight? No. And then I go up, and I see what that's equal to. So let's see if here, okay. So the x is negative 4, so I go to negative 4 on the x-axis, go up, and that's equal to positive 4 on the y, and that's why positive 4 is the answer. Let's see another one. Okay, so here it's f of negative 3, so x is negative 3. So we go to negative 3 on the x-axis, and then see how the green arrow goes up, and that's over at positive 4 for the y. Let's do one more. Okay, f of 7. So x is 7. I go over to 7 on the x-axis, and I have to go down to hit the graph from there, and that hits at negative 2. So you're finding where does it hit the graph when x is 7, okay? It's equal to negative 2. We're going to do one other type, and that is function notation with points on a graph. So same exact idea, f of negative 3. Okay, it says the graph of y equals f of x is shown below. According to the graph, what is f of negative 3? That means x is negative 3. So I go to negative 3 on the x-axis. Okay, and let me look at each point. If I look at point A, that's 3 on the x-axis. If I look at point C, that's 2 on the x-axis. Point B is negative 2. D is negative 3. So D would be my answer. And then I see what the y is equal to, and it's equal to negative 2. And that's what I would submit. Okay? Sometimes it'll ask you for the letter. Sometimes it asks you for the value. All right, the last thing we're going to go over this week is writing linear functions. So we already started this before. Now I'm going to add the third step in, which is slightly different than what we did before. So everyone, please start your notes. So I am going to highlight, because I always like to highlight my title, writing linear functions. So write that down and highlight it, underline it, make it big. On the left side, we put the example. That's the table, write that down. Step 1 is make a table. Well, that's done for us. Awesome. I can jump right into step 2. Okay, so step 2 is find the rate of change. The way I do that is I pick any two coordinates. So I'm going to choose 2, 14. And I'm going to choose 4, 4, because I don't like negatives, so I'm not going to choose 8, negative 16. But you can. And I'm going to label them x and y. And that's my first point, so I put a 1 with both of that. So x1, y1. And I label this x and y, and that's my second point, so I put a 2. And I'm going to use my slope formula, so I'll write it right here so we have it, even though we already wrote it in our notes last week. And I'm going to put a little highlighted box around it. Okay. Now, let's plug in. So y2 goes first on top, and I look to see what's labeled y2, and that's 4. It's always minus. Y1 goes next, that's 14. Over x2, that's labeled 4. Minus x1 is labeled 2. I simplify that, and I get negative 10 over 2. And then I divide that, and I get m equals negative 5. Fantastic. Now I'm going to go to the next step. So I found my rate of change. That's my m. Now step 3 is going to be to plug into y equals mx plus b. So this one is new. So this is the part we're going to pay close attention to. If you need to pause it, write it down, and then follow along. I write y equals mx plus b. This is the algebraic way to find b. Before we were saying, all right, I multiply by negative 5, and then what do I add or subtract? Now we're going to do it algebraically. Take your favorite coordinate from the table and keep those labels x and y. Okay? Now we're going to plug in. So we know when the input is 2, the output is going to be 14, right? Great. So 2 is my input and my output is 14. The 14 is the y, the 2 is the x. I also found that my m was negative 5. So I know all of those parts right now. I recommend you can color code it the way I just did. So draw the arrow that I'm drawing, and the m is going to go in right here. So now we write it out. So I just said my y output is 14. I plug that in there. My m we found was negative 5. I plug that in right there. My x, my input, is 2. And I don't know what b is. So I'm going to keep that as a variable. That's an unknown. And now I'm solving this algebraically. So now you just solve it like an equation. So I multiply, I make my wall where my equal sign is. I multiply -5 times 2, that's -10. Bring everything else down. I have to get b by itself. Since the -10 is being added or subtracted, I use addition or subtraction to cancel it out. So I'm going to use addition because that's the opposite of subtraction. So -10, +10 is the opposite. I do it, whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So these cancel out, and I'm left with 24 equals b. I found my b. So I'm going to highlight that. Again, you can put a box, you can highlight it. And I found my m and my b, and now I have my equation. So when I look at your notes, this time I'm going to be looking that you're using this method. You're finding the slope, using the slope formula, and then finding the b the way I just showed it. Good luck. I will have tutoring this week. It's posted in Google Classroom to see what days it is. And you're going to be practicing the vocab we just saw and how to do this. Have fun.